Independence Day, 1966. The state of Israel is 18 years old, the age at which she conscripts her youngsters for national service. For the first time since the rebirth of the Jewish nation, there are troopers taking part in the march who were born into the state of Israel after independence. Most of the crowds lining the streets were not here 18 years ago. 2 out of every 3 Israelis arrived in the country as immigrants after independence was declared. More than 1.25 million new arrivals. And about half of these, children. Children from 75 different countries scattered around the globe. Many of them from lands in which they had no future, no education. There are 4,800 schools in Israel, and each one crammed to bursting point with eager young pupils, each and every one of them athirst to learn. Tomorrow's world will make great demands on their knowledge. They have to be prepared. With lessons over, like children all over the world, there is a rush to get outside and fit in an hour or so of fun and games before homework. But not everyone makes the usual dash for the door. Shabbatai, for example, is amongst those who stay behind. Many teachers in many schools in Israel have 1 or 2 who stay behind. They leave the classroom open for them. It is understood. It's not that Shabbatai doesn't want to go home. Home is home to any child, but his is a poor home and cramped for space. There is hardly room for all the beds, and there are fewer beds than there are children. And if there's hardly enough room for beds, then there's even less room for quiet study. No one's to blame. That's just the way things are. One makes the best of it. It's not that Shabbatai is a harder worker than his classmates. They all do the same homework, only he does it in school. It means taking off those couple of hours of fun and games outside. Whilst the others are out, Shabbatai is inside, spending his time in preparation for those things that he knows and believes the future holds in store. Holds in store for anyone who knows how to take them, for anyone who has the knowledge to offer in exchange. So an hour or 2 of kicking the ball around must be cut down to a few moments on the way home. Because at home, too, there's very little time to spare. Fun and games have to be caught on the wing. Shabbatai's family consists of 9 brothers and sisters. The eldest has already completed his army service. The youngest is still in his cradle. It's a warm home. There's plenty of joy and laughter, but a little peace and quiet is hard to come by. When there's a large family in a small house, then everyone has a lot to do. Children grow up quickly. The big ones take care of the youngsters, and the youngsters take care of the little ones. It is their home which shapes their lives. Lack of space means lack of time. Lack of time in which to be young and carefree. For Shabbatai, the nearest grown-up is his sister Sarah, still quite young, and Shabbatai himself knows he cannot afford to be a child for long. There has always been a lack of space in this small country. Ever since the rebirth of the state, Israel has been in a fever of building. But funds have always been scarce, and building has never been able to keep up with the demand. There are always thousands of families still in temporary accommodation, waiting. For many new immigrants, there's a gap too between what they've come from and what they move into. New modern apartment blocks mean a new way of life which has to be learnt. New standards of hygiene, a new standard of living, a gap of centuries which has to be bridged almost overnight. Shabbatai's eldest brother Moshe is a building worker. But so far he has only built houses for other people. His family's turn is yet to come. He's in his early 20s, has finished his army service, and the future lies open before him. Today, the future lies in dreams. Dreams to be found on the silver screen and in the rhythm of the pop songs that throb throughout the world. Today it seems tomorrow cannot be just around the corner. Many of his generation were excellent soldiers. They did their bit, and now they ask themselves, what next? And the answer is not always clear. There are many asking questions, making demands for better housing than the temporary apartments they now have. There's plenty offered in the streets and shops, but it seems to be for someone else, for all those other people, busy, bustling, making a go of it, while others sit by and watch. There's a gap between the two, a gap that must be bridged. The bitter anger of the unemployed works as a safety valve, but this is not the answer. Today's world is harsh and often violent, but the dreams that are offered in return for the price of a cinema seat don't fit today's reality. They're good lads. They did their bit in the army. They found their place there. They learned a lot and came to value it. Order, discipline, neatness. They learned that results come from deeds, that it's action that counts, not waiting around. Each and every one of them was ready to do the lot, ready for anything if called on. And after 2.5 years of national service came demobilization, immobilization. Now Moshe is looking, not knowing where or how, for his own particular tomorrow. In the arts and entertainments, much has been done to close the gap. The Nobel Dance Theatre has intermingled ancient legends from the desert with modern 20th century choreography. The Israel Philharmonic Orchestra stands in the front rank of the world's famous ensembles. Israel's stages present a rich selection of world drama, both classical and modern. Musical comedy rubs shoulders with modern ballet. Israel's painters have gained international renown. Their images are often those of a people's ancient history and tradition, rendered anew in all the myriad forms of modern artistry. The oldest game of skill, chess, finds pride of place in this young country. Israel has played host to one of the great international chess Olympiads. Israel's literature gained a place of prominence in the world of letters when Shmuel Yosef Agnon was awarded the Nobel Prize for his stories. Stories which depict a present-day reality linked to the tradition-rich past both in style and in philosophy. Yes, tomorrow holds out promises. And once each year, the high school entrance exams see tens of thousands of young pupils struggling to win the accolade. And there are others who prefer more practical trades, who choose to equip themselves for the future, not by words, but by deeds. These youngsters in Beit Shemesh are taking a practical lesson in public spiritedness as they clean up the backyards of the town of which they want to be proud. Their time for growing up is short, but for all that, children do find their joys, their pleasures, as children will, wherever they may be. The school canteen serves a hot meal daily. For many of them, this may be their only hot meal of the day, if both parents and the elder children work away from home. But life for Shabbatai and his generation does not consist of bread alone. They are hungry for everything that each day has to offer. The young people's drama group finds inspiration in Italian commedia dell'arte comedy.
ברשותכם האדיבה, נעביר אתכם לאיטליה של המאה ה-16. הננו להקת בתחנים הנודדים מעיר לעיר ומציגים לפשוטי העם. מלאכים, חנוונים, משרתים ושוליות, בואו ותחזו בקומדיה דל'ארטה.
איזה טונינה איזו. אני לא עד כולי. סליחה, מאוד סליחות. אני נחום סעיד רבותיי. הלא נפגשנו כבר פעם, לא כן? ובכן הערב הנני ארלקינו. המכתב.
ארלקינו! בוא הנה ריקאו בוחז, בוא! מה בידיך?
מה קרה לי שנייה?
ראה, היזהר לך, היזהר. עתיד לבוא הנה חתנה של ביתי, דוקטורי. שים לב.
The time for growing up is short, and that's true just as much for the children as it is for the whole country. The nation tries to absorb its new arrivals into useful tasks as soon as they set foot in the country. Hundreds of thousands of newcomers have passed through professional training schemes since the re-establishment of the state, and today they play their part in paving the way for more. Building, manufacturing, creating, and taking pride in their achievements. Particularly so when their products achieve an export standard and compete in the keen world markets. It all goes well for one and all, just so long as there are jobs to be had and there is work to be done. But this is not always the case. At such times of crisis, there are tough decisions to be taken. Are some of the hands to be laid off, or will all agree to a reduction of work days, a cut in salary? It's tough, but there's no choice. The layoff, unemployment, time stands still. Time-killing games to be played out in the little cafe where the coffee can be chalked up on account against tomorrow's better luck. At home, nothing to do but worry about the kids. Israel, younger than many other nations, cannot afford to let one single precious man-hour go to waste, yet cannot afford at times to pay enough in salaries. So time stands still. Tomorrow's even further off, out there somewhere, beyond that dull horizon, still in dreams. You want to break out, to get it off your chest. You want to win through to fame and fortune, but even boxing and football are luxuries here for amateurs. No player makes a living at it. In the beginning, when the land was resettled, people made their living in fields. People went back to the land as simply as that. Farming was the first art we learned to master, and it's farming that we are still developing to this day. Farming gave us our first big achievements: bumper crops, new methods, modern cultivation, a slow and steady rise that began to close the gap in the standard of living. Gidon, agricultural instructor from the Jewish Agency, looks back today on a past history of successes which made tomorrow come true. This family came to the country 10 years ago. They got the help they needed, but they also knew how to be helped and how to help themselves, even though they had never been on a farm before. They now have a well-established smallholding, and their cows win prizes in the agricultural shows. Here, the gap between bare beginnings and tomorrow's promises is closed. There's no need for further help. Israel's agriculture provides the majority of the country's needs and even exports oranges and eggs, avocados, strawberries and flowers. The parents never dreamed of being farmers, but their children will be farmers to the manner born. However, not all the 480 settlements which have been established since the birth of the state, and not all the 33,000 families who settled on them, have had such luck. Here, in a neighboring village, Gidon lends an ear to tales of woe, troubles and problems seemingly without solution. These people came here recently, and not yet used to making do, have not yet mastered this new art. Faith in themselves is running out, and time is rushing by. Turning the wasteland into fertile fields is proving to be too much for them. Here, Gidon's role must be that of father as well as friend. Raise their spirits, show it can be done, and get for them the tools with which to do the job. Irrigation pipes, machinery, as was done for those who came before them. The general meeting of the settlement brings problems and solutions into focus. Here there are newcomers from a dozen lands. Farmers and apprentices from east and west meet face to face, and a dozen different tongues merge into one, the language of the Bible, Hebrew. Without noticing, deep in the thick of work and day-to-day, they are becoming one nation, one people, working the land to which they have returned. Shmuel came here only 15 years before, airlifted from the Yemen as a boy with all his country's Jews together, man, woman and child. Today he proudly grows rich corn, shooting up above his head as fast as it can drink up the irrigation waters. Water is a problem which is older than the state. Rain to water the fields is a blessing from the skies, but raging winter in a dry country can be a curse. What is fill and overflow, and the raging unchecked torrents evade the efforts of the engineers and run to waste. They must be trapped and stored against the summer drought. Floods unchecked bring misery and devastation. Paths are washed away, and those who still wait for stout and permanent housing find themselves overnight with nowhere to live at all. Adaptability to changing conditions is an even harder task for those advanced in years. Old age sinks deeper into prayer and tradition, clinging to the beliefs passed down from generation to generation throughout thousands of years to these, our present times. Candles have been lit in synagogues since time immemorial. In Poland, in Lithuania, Yemen and Morocco, now these same lights shine forth in Israel. Prayers of atonement, murmured once beside great rivers, here on the Mediterranean shore form a link with the past and future, bridging a gap between the people and their past. The past lies buried here on Mount Masada. Here, the last stronghold of rebellion, where the survivors died by their own hands rather than fall captive to the Roman conqueror. Archaeology has revealed not only the relics buried in the stone, but that spirit of yesteryear which must be our watchword for the morrow. Masada shall never fall again. Israel's defense forces are an army on the move, on the alert at all times to guard the troubled peace. Tomorrow must be made certain for those who work towards its goal. Training for the future is a large part of army life, and here the gap can be closed in months. Together with his battle dress, each new recruit is issued with fatigues, and it is in these working clothes that he makes the greatest use of his period of army service. The Army Training Center gives him knowledge, technical ability, necessary not only for the maintenance of a smooth and up-to-date military machine, but useful too in later life. Technological skills are in demand throughout today's world, whether in uniform or out of it. The only difference, in the army, there are always jobs to be done. In the outside world, there's not always a salary to come by, and so the gap begins once again. The army serves to bridge the gap also for those not numbered in its ranks. Corporal Ayelet, national servicewoman, has a special role to play. She teaches Hebrew and basic education to the immigrants of a new settlement in Galilee. Her pupils may be 3 or even 4 times her age, but they turn to her as they would turn to their elders, as she brings them books and pencils and the alphabet. But these are times when the peace of the fields is frequently disturbed by shots. And when that happens, when trouble breaks out from across the border, Israel's soldiers must drop their tools and books and do their bit when called on. Often, the price that's paid for peace is high. Young lives cut off, tomorrow gone to waste. Their youth was hurried, little time for play, hard work, the promise of the future, and its loss. No more. They'd others might win through. Shabbatai has little time to be a boy. There are still many years to go before his army service, but for his little brothers, he is the nearest grown-up that they know, grown up before his time. It is he that they turn to in times of trouble, with problems big and small. He knows they need a helping hand to find their way.